Alright guys, so I thought I was going to put the brake stuff on today, but I had to get everything out and inventory everything, and I went through some stuff that I got from a friend of mine, and I think, luckily, I've got most of the stuff. Problem is, this is what's missing. There's only one of these. These are the little, I don't even know what the heck you'd call these things, but anyway, they go in the wheel cylinder. And this part goes into the shoe right here. And there was two of these. We were missing two, but I can only find one. So I don't know. We must have lost it somewhere. But anyway, I went in there and got online, and I got on eBay and I just typed in 1976 Camaro wheel cylinder. And I knew a bunch of wheel cylinders would come up. But on the first few things on there, a set of 4 of these popped up for 15 bucks in gold catted, so I went ahead and bought them. It was with free shipping. But I think everything else is here. So Steve had bought 2 different kits of brake hardware stuff, and neither one of them are correct. So, I mean, there's different size 8.5s. There's like 8.2, 8.5. I mean, it's, I don't really understand. What we did find out for sure though is like Chevy truck 8.5 10 bolts, they're a lot wider, so all the stuff is thicker. We ended up going to a salvage, getting a lot of stuff off a rear end that was in a pile, and got it back only to find out the stuff was too big. But anyway, I got a bunch of stuff from a friend of mine, and luckily this stuff does match a lot of the stuff that come off of this side. So I don't know if I mentioned it or not. All that stuff was missing on that side, but we got this side was complete. But anyway, when I bought the rear end for Steve at the salvage, it had the brake drums on it, and I didn't pull them off and look at anything, you know what I mean? I just assumed all the stuff would be in there, but it was not. So this has kind of been a mess, but anyway, we've got new shoes here, and it has the short shoe and the long shoe. And in case you don't know, on rear brakes on drums, when you get a new set, you'll have a shoe that is shorter. The material side of it is shorter than the other side, if you can see that. So the short shoe goes to the front. Now, in case you put the long shoe on the front by mistake, what can happen is the back brakes will lock up. Can lock up, I should say. But anyway, it just kind of sucks. I'm having to put all this together, but a lot of the springs don't match from the new kit, so I'm going to have to pretty much try to fix all this original stuff, and it's all crusty and rusty and crappy. So what I ended up doing was, so I don't mix that stuff up, I've been blasting stuff one side at a time, other than these bars here. But this is a lot of the stuff from what you just saw me blast. This is the driver's side or left side stuff. I didn't want to go through and put primer on it and then go ahead and paint it. I'm just using some Krylon Fusion, which is supposed to be, you know, primer and paint and everything all in one, which it's better than nothing. But the reason I used green is I have a brand new can of this. It's been on my shelf for about 10 years. I bought it for some reason and never used it, or somebody give it to me. But I thought I would go ahead and use it because you're not going to see the stuff anyway. It's inside the brake drum. But at least it's a coating and it won't rust. So anyway, I've got the other stuff laying here, which this was the only thing that was inside that brake drum on the passenger side was this. So anyway, now I'm going to blast all this stuff. Luckily, in that stuff that I got from my buddy, he had a pair of these, and these are opposite of each other. One is left-hand thread, so that's pretty awesome. That I got those actually. We was missing one of these springs, and there was one in that stuff I got from my buddy, so, and one of these too, I think. But anyway, I blasted all this stuff, and I put a coat of paint on this side, and now I need to flip them over and shoot them. But I'm going to shoot those, and then when they dry, I'm going to put them in the garage and then close the garage door and then come out and blast this stuff and paint it. But anyway, I have to wait on the other stuff to come in before I can do the brake shoe loading and stuff. I can do this stuff with the body on the frame, so I'm not too worried about it right now, but I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and remove these wheel cylinders because they're brand new and they're just cast iron and they're starting to rust, and you can actually see it on the back side of the backing plate there, and it looks pretty bad. And when I got the wheel cylinders and I put them on there back when I was working at Steve's house on his car in his own shop, I just bolted them, put them in there, and there was no bolts. So I went through his pile of bolts and found some that are painted copper, which are from either his oil pan or his timing chain cover off his 327, because they had put ARP stuff in there. So I ended up using a couple of those, and all the paint's flaking off and all kinds of crap. So I'm going to go through my stainless steel pile and see if I got a couple of short 7/16 bolts to put in there, and I'll put some anti-seize on it. But I think I'm going to go ahead and pull these off and clean them up with a wire brush and go ahead and put some paint on there. That way they don't rust. I'm just going to paint them flat black because you do see the back side of it a little bit. But I'm going to pull the bleeder screws out because they're zinc plated and I don't want to paint those too. But anyway, that's where I'm at. I started to do the brakes. It's just not going to happen because I got to wait on parts to get here. But I guess what I need to do is go ahead and work on them rear brake lines. The thing about it is, if I can go ahead and get the rear brake lines done, I'd rather do them right now while the body's off and do all that. And at that point, I can go ahead and bolt the fuel line to the chassis because I got to leave it coiled up back here because I'm not going to know how long the fuel line needs to be. I've got to cut it and flare it under the car to get it to go to the sending unit. But anyway, at that point, I could possibly go ahead and put the body on the frame because I can always finish the front suspension with the body on it, you know what I mean? But anyway, I mean, it's coming together. There's so much stuff to put on it that I kind of just bounce it all over the place. But I guess that's what I'll do. I'll probably go ahead and I'm going to finish blasting this brake parts and get that stuff painted. And then I'm going to go ahead and, I guess, work on them rear brake lines. And then, I guess, decide if I'm going to go ahead and make an attempt to put this on the frame or not. Alright, so I got the wheel cylinders. I pulled them out and cleaned them up with a wire wheel and painted them with just some black aerosol etching primer. And I bolted them back in, and I used some stainless steel little socket cap Allens and some washers. It looks pretty nice. It looks a lot better. But anyway, now it's, you know, black on black instead of being rust on black. I think that looks pretty nice. So now it's time for brake lines, but again, I don't have the table cleared off of all the suspension stuff for the front, so I thought I'd go ahead and knock that out real quick. And then I decided it would probably be better to have the steering box off of it when I put the body on, because I don't want to try to get the body set down on there and then it, you know, run into that and then chew up the firewall. So I don't have those 3 nuts tied on the box, so it can be pulled right back off very easily. But I was going to go ahead and put the center link in, and I think now I'm just going to wait until the body's on to put all that on, because that way the box can be off and it'll be out of the way. But I did get everything out and ready, and everything's cleaned and ready to be assembled. So I thought I'd go ahead and run you guys through that since it's all laying here, because some guys may not have messed with this on their car yet. So you can get stainless 90-degree fittings or Zerk fittings for this. And anyway, the original one that was on Steve's car, the ball was frozen in place, so I have a bunch of these stainless ones here, so I just replaced it. I run it on the buffing wheel a little bit to get a little bit of a shine out of it. But it's all clean down inside, and it already has the parts pressed into the end of it for the idler arm bearing conversion kit. So if you've never messed with one of these, they've got a funky slot in them like this. And anyway, it takes this. So once everything's out of there and cleaned up, and you clean all your stuff up, you put in a spring first, and then a plug goes down inside the spring like that, and then your first cup. And at that point, I go ahead and put that on the ball on the Pitman. Then I push in the other piece in to meet that one on this side of the ball. Then you put a spring up to that, and then you put a plug in that end. And then it takes your big nut here, which I cleaned on the wire wheel, and then I just painted it with some cast iron gray. But anyway, that screws into the end of this center link like this. Supposedly like that. But anyway, it does take a cotter pin, and I've got an assortment here of stainless steel ones, so I grabbed one out of there. This one's a little long, but it's pretty fat, and it actually fits in there pretty good. So I'm going to trim this down a little bit once I install everything and then bend both ends over. But you need one of these, so always get a new one of these. It's just a dust cover. And it comes with this thick little rubber foam type seal here. And it's to keep, you know, when you're driving in the rain or down a dirt road or something, it's to keep dirt and dust and everything from getting up here and on the ball. So make sure when you do put that on that you do have that on there. So anyway, once you get all that stuff put in and you run that nut down on there, what you do is you run that, you tighten that down, you pretty much bottom it all the way out. Then you back it off 3/4 of a turn and plus whatever more you need to put the cotter pin in to get it line up. So all the way in, back it off 3/4 of a turn. That's right directly out of the pages of the shop manual. So, and you know, some guys may not know that, so now you know. Now here's what I use to take them off and on. It's just a regular tire tool with a flat end on it, and it works good to stick down in there to turn that and tighten it or loosen it. And that's what I have always used since the 90s, because I always have some of these laying around. Nice handle to hold on to for good leverage too. So anyway, I always pre-grease everything. I put grease on the ball, I put grease on all that stuff. I actually pack it in between the springs pretty heavy, and then, you know, put it on just about everything when I put it in there. But as I stated, now I need to put all this back up because I want to remove that box before I install it on the car, but I never did tighten this, so that's a good thing. Alright guys, so I did a little test piece here with this new brake flaring tool, and I gotta tell you, I'm absolutely in love with this thing. Where has this flaring tool been all my life? My goodness. So I went ahead and cut the end that I double flared off, and I'm gonna start over. I'm gonna show you all. Some of you guys probably have one of these and know how it works, but I'm just trying to square up that end, make sure it's good and square here. No burrs. I always use this old hobby knife in here just to kind of work that off. Now I'm not going to put a nut on here because this is just a test piece, but this is really cool. So you get the tool and you basically clamp it in the vise, and you have to slip the handle in this piece here. But this is a rotating head that you put on there, and it just rotates. So if you read it, it'll tell you which one to use. Operation 1, which is OP, Operation 1 or Operation 2. So you want to start obviously with Operation 1. Now I'm working with 3/16 steel line, so it's OP1 3/16. So then you get these two halves right here, and you can see the countersunk look end on it, and it kind of locks together a little bit. But anyway, you put that countersink end out facing this. You put this first half down in there, and it kind of locks down in there. Then you put your line into that, and then you put the other half on. But what it's saying to do is put that line in and bring it all the way out even with the end of that block right there. So if you can see that, you got to put it all the way up until it comes out to there. So anyway, put that in there like that. just like that. And this piece right here you put over, push the pin in, and then you lock this down. And I've got it on OP1 3/16, and then all you do is take this, do that, and that put the first part of a double flare in. Now you rotate this to operation 2, which it says 3/16 and quarter. So flip it over to OP2. Done. That's how simple that is, man. I'm blown away. Look at that. Look how nice that is. And it's even. I've always used them old school crappy ones, man, that like this. And if they're sloppy, they always tend to get the flare a little crooked, and I'd always have to loosen it off and rotate the tubing and then redo it again. But that is straight up awesome. That is a beautiful double flare. Look at that. That was the best 200 bucks ever spent right there on a tool. I am blown away. I am absolutely blown away. This fuel lines and everything's so fast. But anyway, these are all over eBay. I think I got this one from Speedway, but I may have got it from eBay. I don't remember, but it was right at about 200 bucks. Man, I am super impressed, man. That is awesome. And then you pull the handle back out and undo it out of there, pull the head back off, and put it back in the box. Man, I'm blown away. I'm easily amused though. If I remember how this went in there. I took this out yesterday. I guess I should have paid more attention. Oh well. So, off to make brake lines. Well, I got this brake line done. So that was a straight stick like these. It was a pretty short one that I had. Anyway, I bent it and got it coming around all that stuff and going straight into the junction block. That turned out really nice. It looks really clean. I love it. The cool part is they don't stick out, like it's not in your face being a silver brake line or a polished stainless or something. So I think it looks pretty cool. So I've got a couple of flaring or benders here. This is the one I kind of use the most. It's a little bitty thing. It gets a really tight 90 in there, and that's what I used here. But this one I've had probably about 25 years probably. This one's, you can see the size difference in those two. This is the one I used to always use, but it puts a really wide 90. This one does a really tight one, but I sure do like it. Usually put just a little bit of PB Blaster, WD-40, whatever I got, just put a little bit in there, and that way it kind of helps the line slide a little bit easier. But this Teflon brake line, this Teflon coated, and it seems to help the bender keep it from kinking a little easier. I don't know how, but it just always seems to help to me. But the first piece of brake line that I tried, you know, it's already double flared on both ends, a straight stick, so I just have to cut one end and re-flare it. I could not get it to screw into the wheel cylinder, and I was like, what the heck? So I got to checking it out, and it had a 3/16 label on it, but it was a metric. I'm assuming it's a metric. It looks like the size of 3/16, but it's a lot more fine thread. So I ended up having to take one of Steve's old brake lines, and the ones that I'd already pre-bent to go around all the stuff when the leaf springs were flipped to the inside, they won't work now because I have to re-bend this stuff to go around where it is now. But anyway, I took one of his old pieces and cut the fittings off of it and used it on that piece of brake line. So it ended up working out. But usually when you buy one of these brake line sticks from the parts store, you get a long fitting on one end and a short fitting on the other. And the long fittings, I always try to put them up here against the back of the wheel cylinder. It just kind of gets it out there a little bit further away from everything, so you got a good room to get a wrench on it. A short one would have probably been fine here, but especially on my bracket here. So now that this is in, this is tightened down, this is on where it's going to be, but I have it tightened down, and you can see how easy it'll be to put a wrench on there. If I'd have used a short one, it'd have been up here, and I would have been kind of fighting the bracket with the wrench. So now that it's out here past it, it works pretty good. So I don't know, I was easily amused, man. I think it looks pretty cool. But anyway, I had to put a little 45 in this one because the wheel cylinder inlet is at an angle, and I brought it down and got it away from all that stuff and around and then back over. But I think it looks really, really nice. So now I got one more to make to go around, and I got to go up and over all this stuff. And I am most likely going to drill and tap the frame here. I might make a steel bracket to come out here. It just kind of depends on where this lines up at. There's a factory, I think that's a threaded hole right there, but I'm going to utilize that for a brake line clamp to go here. But I got to wait until I get it going. But it's got to come out and then follow the contour of this, and then back down, and then kick out around and then back in, just like I did that one. So it's almost 5 o'clock, and my wife is bringing us home some fajitas, so I'm going to go ahead and put up shop, and then I'll finish this tomorrow. So pretty excited. I wonder if that'll fit in there. Oh, it does. That was a rubber plug that was in the wheel cylinder, so I'll go ahead and snap that one in there. This one's already got one in it, and it's just to keep anything from getting in there overnight. But yesterday I blew that brake line out. After I bolted this to the junction block, I put air in the line up there and blew this out. And then before I put the line on, I blew this out. So making sure there's no debris down inside that line before I bolt it on, and then it's trapped in there, you know what I mean? But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for today. I didn't really get a whole lot accomplished today, it doesn't seem like, but I did. I painted quite a few more little small parts. I did get Steve's car moved back and all that mess cleaned up behind it. I did bolt some of the stuff back on the transmission. I painted the transmission mount because they'd painted everything. I painted this bracket black, and I painted the transmission mount. I took out, I polished the fittings that go in here, and then I reinstalled those with some thread sealant on there, just a little bit. But anyway, all that stuff was on the table, so I went ahead and just assembled it on the trans, and that way I don't put it in a bag and put it somewhere and then can't find it later. But tomorrow, I think it's supposed to be 61 degrees. It's supposed to be really windy, but I should be able to finish this brake line. And then at that point, I could, after I remove the steering box, which will just take like 30 seconds probably to loosen off the nuts and slide it off there, I could probably go ahead and set the body back on the frame. But when I was moving this stuff over here, I forgot about this. I forgot I had redone this trunk floor because it was all wrinkled up and beat up. I probably need to put that in there before I put the body back on the frame. That way I've got access to the back of it. So there's I completely forgot about that. It's got a drive-through window in the back. But anyway, I've got to do some metal work. I got to make a patch, and I've got to put the original piece back in, but I had to take it out to straighten everything out. All this stuff was really screwed up from collision damage. Anyway, they'd kind of cobbled on it a little bit, and I'm trying to decobble it. But so I need to do that. So I may not get the body on tomorrow like I was thinking. But so I'm going to go ahead and build the brake line tomorrow on that one side, get that done. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and jump to this and get this finalized. But that way I'll be able to get up underneath it and get it ground on the back side after welding it in. But that is it, man. That is it for today. A little bit of work done. I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but I blasted a bunch of brake parts and painted those. I've got them all put in separate boxes, like right here. I've got this one labeled right, and then I got that other one labeled left. But I got to wait on those parts to come in before I can put the brake stuff on. Steve had the drums turned at the parts store, so that'll be awesome. But tomorrow I'll set up the camera and just let it go while I bend that brake line and flare it and do all that kind of stuff, so you'll see how kind of easy it is. If you've never done it before, it's not that hard to do. But anyway, I'm pretty happy, man. This stuff's starting to go together pretty good. Thanks for watching.